Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Mr. Sanchez coming at you with another lesson. Today we're going to be reviewing some pre-algebra stuff. We're going to be reviewing the graphing basics, basically. So graph basics. Give me one second. I need to find my screen. All right. So our learning target is understand the basics of a graph. Now we're just gonna jump right into it. We have some definitions that I gotta cover. There's the x-intercept. That's the point where your function crosses the x-axis, and then we have a y-intercept. That's the point where your function crosses the y-axis. The function can be a line or quadratic function. It's basically any. I don't know. It can be anything in a graph, really. But we're gonna focus mostly on linear functions this semester. The origin is something else, something we gotta remember. That's the point where the x and y axis intersect. That's also 0, 0. And so you're probably wondering, okay, what does that look like on the graph? So right here below, you'll see we have this graph. And I want you guys to draw this graph, right? So on a vertical line going, this vertical line going straight up and down, that's called our y-axis, okay? And there's a horizontal line going left to right. That's our x-axis. You're gonna notice that we have this diagonal line. That's what we're gonna call our function. Okay. Let me just see what's wrong with pencil because there's one right. Oh, there we go. So this is our function f of x. Sometimes we call it y, but that depends on the problem we're working on. Right here, you'll notice there's this point here, 0, 4. Well, this 0, 4, that's called our y-intercept. Why is it called our y-intercept? Because like we said before, it is the point where your function crosses the y-axis. So this vertical line is the y-axis, and that's where we cross the graph. That is our y-intercept. Okay, next up, we're going to go over where our x-intercept is. Let's look at our x-axis. That's this line right here. And where do we cross it? We cross our x-axis right here at 6, 0. That's going to be our x-axis, x-intercept. Okay. Not so bad, right? Okay. So you're probably wondering, all right, mister, what else do we need to know? Right here, this point right here, that's called the origin. And the origin is always 0, 0. Sometimes you'll see it denoted like this, just as a 0. In our graph, it's kind of like a little italic 0. That's just some notation we do in math. Oh, the last thing I want to talk about in this graph, sorry about the yawn. The last thing I want to talk about in this graph is going to be our quadrants. If you'll notice, there's when we do our graph, there's when you cross the x and y axis, there's 4 regions. There's this area, this area, this area, and this area. Well, each of these regions actually has a name. So the first region is going to be where all the positive numbers are for the x and y axis. So that's going to be quadrant 1. And the special thing about quadrant 1 is that x and y are positive, okay? And y is positive. So you see, if you put a point here, this is 6, 4. They're always going to be positive. When you go to quadrant 2, that's right over here, right? It becomes a little different. The x values now become negative. So x is negative, but the y values are still positive. If you're wondering what that is, well, look at these values over here. They're negative, but up here they're positive. Quadrant 3 is this part of our graph, and that is when both our x is negative and our y is negative. And our y's are going to be negative, okay? That's what's special about quadrant 3. It's always all negative. And then we go to our last section of our graph, quadrant 4. That's going to have the x being positive and the y being negative. Why? Well, the x's are positive here, but the y's are negative here. Okay, and those are our quadrants. Okay, Yeah, and that's basically it. That's all I wanted to go over: the quadrants, the x-intercept, y-intercept, the x-axis, the y-axis, and the origin, and our function, right? All right, guys, we needed this review in order to grasp our next in order to do our next section. All right, guys, have a great day. Bye bye.